This is NASCAR Coast to Coast, brought to you by Hercules Tires, right on our strength, and by Grunt Style. Now, with all the news from NASCAR touring, local and international series racing, here are RIckey and Hannah Newhouse.
The NASCAR Pinty Series has amidst their busiest stretch north of the border, and the late models shine in the Hampton Heat. Welcome to NASCAR Coast to Coast for Wednesday, August 22nd, 2018. RIckey here in Killingly, Connecticut, joined by Hannah Newhouse in our Concord, North Carolina studios. And Hannah, before we get to talking about the racing of the week in the short track world, well, I guess this is short track racing. You've been busy at the Bristol Motor Speedway, one of the voices, one of the faces of a busy race weekend at BMS that started way back last Thursday with the modifieds and the NASCAR Camping World trucks.
Yes, it was an awesome opportunity to get to hang out with everyone at Bristol Motor Speedway. They kept me busy, to say the least. Long days, but lots of great racing. When Saturday trickled around and Mother Nature was playing games, I was like, okay, I'm going to be hanging out here till Sunday. But fortunately, Mother Nature came through, and we got that race in on Saturday night. And what a great race. Like I always say, Bristol Night Race, since I was a little kid, was always like a bucket list race for me to go to. So to get the opportunity to go there, work with Colossus TV and all the great people at Bristol Motor Speedway, it was definitely a weekend to remember. But as you can tell, my voice has definitely taken the toll from working the last 3 days on Colossus TV.
One of the greatest races for the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series that we've seen in quite some time at Bristol, but also a great race for the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour. Ran the Bush's Beans 150 to kick off a busy race weekend last Thursday night. And to no one's surprise, I don't think anyway, Justin Bonsignore was the class of the field once again.
Yeah, he was. And when I talked to him before the race, he said, you know, we're here. We didn't want to come into this race in points race. We really just wanted to come in, get a win at Bristol. It's one of the few tracks we haven't won at yet. And that's exactly what they did. You know, I thought he was maybe playing games at the beginning of the race because on initial restarts, he would drop back 4, 5, 6 positions and then give him about 10, 15 laps, and he would shoot back towards the front of the field again. And I talked to his crew chief, Ryan Stone, and he's like, hey, we've just got a really good long-run car, and it's shown at Bristol we usually get long runs. And, I mean, he made the right call, and him and Stone set up a great car and found their way back into victory lane. I mean, you would have thought that crew won their first race of the season when they all went into victory lane at Bristol.
When it was their 6th win of the season for Justin Bonsignore and that entire team. Let's talk about Chase Dowling for a moment. For a 5th time in less than a year, he finishes 2nd, still looking to break through in the victory lane. Second's nice, but you have to think though that 2nd place probably getting a bit old.
Yeah, he's got to be sick and tired of 2nd place. They weren't sure how they were going to run really at Bristol. Chase had kind of told me that's not really one of my favorite racetracks. And so when they went there, they ran good. I mean, how many times ultimately can you finish 2nd before you're just so frustrated? But there's still about 5 races left. They revisit Stafford. They're going to Oswego. So he still has that opportunity to break through. But, man, what a frustrating – you almost can't get frustrated with 2nd, but what a frustrating season when you've been there so many times.
We got that 250-lap race coming up in a couple of weeks at New Hampshire Motor Speedway as well. And, of course, a final trip to the Thompson Speedway Motorsports Park to wrap up the season. Behind Bonsignore and Dowling were Patrick Emmerling, Rob Summers, and Doug Coby, the top 5. Bonsignore has a 62-point lead over Dowling, heading to, like you mentioned, the Oswego Speedway here in just over a week from now. Elsewhere over the weekend, the NASCAR Pinty Series back in action at Riverside International Raceway in Nova Scotia. LP Dumoulin, who will be on the show today, led 151 laps in the bumper-to-bumper 300, held off Cole Powell at the win to claim his 3rd victory of the season. He now has a 19-point lead over Powell heading to the series' next race at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. We will hear from LP in a few minutes. But coming up next, Hannah, a driver that's tearing it up in the NASCAR late model world, and again, no one's surprised. Philip Morris, the Division I NASCAR Whelen All-American Series championship leader, winning the 2nd leg of the Virginia Triple Crown this past weekend, the Hampton Heat 200, which was rained out a couple of different times over the course of the last month, including last weekend. It was supposed to be a Saturday night race, was run on Sunday. That did not stop Philip, though, from a dominated run.
Philip Morris is one of those drivers that when he shows up, you know that he is one of the top 2 guys to beat. And it's been that way for most of his career. So to see Philip back on top, dominating after Lee Pulliam had kind of made the statement last year that he wasn't going to run for another NASCAR Whelen All-American Series national title, it really, I don't feel like it's surprising to anyone to see him so dominant because he was successful last year. So for him to just be able to add on to that success this year, running tracks like South Boston and Southern National, Myrtle Beach, Dominion, he gets everywhere and he's so good at all of them. So no surprise to see him, but so cool for him to add that Hampton Heat victory to his resume that's already so stacked.
His first Hampton Heat 200 win, he won or led wire to wire on Sunday afternoon, and he will join us after the break when we come back here on NASCAR Coast to Coast.
Grunt Style. The American fighting spirit is in everything we make. We are 500 patriots and veterans strong, bringing clothing manufacturing back to the United States of America. Always moving forward, never retreating, never giving up. We are Grunt Style, and this we'll defend. Get yours at gruntstyle.com.
I'm former crew chief and STP auto expert Steve Letarte. Does your engine feel like it's down on power? It could be caused by deposits on fuel injectors, engine valves, and combustion chambers. An easy way to help clean up your fuel system and restore lost power is through the gas tank with STP Ultra 5-in-1 Fuel System Cleaner. One bottle contains 3 times the amount of cleaning agents versus the leading premium gasoline to help keep your engine running strong. STP, inside every great machine.
One bottle contains 3 times by weight the amount of cleaning agents and 35 gallons of the leading premium gasoline.
This is NASCAR Coast to Coast, brought to you by Hercules Tires and by Grunt Style. Here are Kyle Rickey and Hannah Newhouse.
Back here on NASCAR Coast to Coast, shifting our attention now to NASCAR late model racing and a driver that had it all covered on Sunday afternoon in the Hampton Heat 200 at Langley Speedway. Talking about Philip Morris, who joins us now on the guest line, picking up his first win in that prestigious event. Philip, welcome to NASCAR Coast to Coast, and congratulations on your first win in the Hampton Heat 200.
Thanks so much, man. Thanks for having me on the show. Yeah, it's that's my first, I think, Triple Crown race that we've won. So still celebrating even today.
You led wire to wire to hold off several challenges from guys like Peyton Sellers, Bobby McCarty, all while racing with a fairly new format to the event that allowed some changes tire changes, that is, during scheduled breaks. How difficult was it for you guys to stay up front all day for 200 laps?
Well, my crew chief made it easy on me because we had such a good car. You know, we've raced at Langley all year and had come up with a pretty trick setup for that track and really honed in on it in the last couple of weeks. So coming into that race, we really had a great advantage with having a car that would really roll the center and not do too much damage to them coming off. But any of the guys out there that race on flat tracks, they know how bad it is and how hard it is to keep the right rear tire on there and how much damage you do, especially when you're racing guys. And we had a lot of cautions there in that second half, the second 100, and so everybody got a shot at us, but we were able to get away far enough to where I could roll center and just get in the gas and take off straight. So it was an awesome day for me.
Now, after that initial Hampton Heat was rescheduled, of course, you guys were supposed to run on Saturday, got moved to Sunday with the rain, but all I could see on social media, and I wasn't there myself, was how hot it was and how grueling the conditions were. How physically tough was it to race in that heat? I mean, Hampton Heat, I guess that's where it gets the name, right?
Yeah, and it is. It is so hot, Hannah. You wouldn't believe. I mean, I have to train every day. I'm 53, and I'm racing against guys that are still in school, and they got better stamina, and it just comes natural at that age. But for me, I'm in the gym every day, running six miles on the elliptical, and really working out hard and trying to get used to the heat. I sweat a lot, and so I was really ready for that race. And they rained that race out several weeks ago. It's probably a good thing for me because we really hadn't got honed in on our setup until the last twin night that they had, which was a week and a half before this race. And man, we sure came up on some really good setup stuff. And my crew chief, Forrest Reynolds, he's way beyond. He's only 30, but he's way beyond his years and being able to watch a car and see what it's doing. So the heat was tough, but I had a crew chief that really had a car working good for me, so I was able to hit my marks pretty easy all day.
You're now tied with Peyton Sellers atop the Virginia Triple Crown Championship standings after 2 events. Of course, Peyton won at South Boston earlier this summer. The third round comes up next month at the Martinsville Speedway in Virginia. Talk about how important these 3 races are to late model racing, and even how important it would be and special it would be to win that championship that brings these 3 events together every year.
There's a lot of attention placed on this particular race coming up at Martinsville. It's young guys showcasing their talent for the bigger teams that are out there that are, they're looking to move up and to graduate from this class. Thank God NASCAR gives us the Whelen All-American Series for guys like me who really want to race on Saturday nights and still be involved in racing. And but really, this race is so important because there's so much attention put on it. And not that I'm trying to move up the ladder, but I think it kind of puts you in perspective of where you are in being competitive. So I feel like that it's a lot of focus on this with all teams that go, and as well as I do, there's going to be 100 cars or 120 cars at that race this time, and so it's going to be awful tough. But I feel like that's kind of my track. I've been racing there since '97, and got a real feel for that track. And if something doesn't break on the car, I think we're one of the teams that's favored.
And that Valley Star Credit Union 300 is definitely an incredible race. I've gone the last 2 years now, and to see all the late model stocks there and how hard and competitive the racing is, it's definitely one of those races that if someone hasn't gone yet, you need to put that on your list. But if we look, away from Martinsville that's coming up, you guys have had success at tracks like Southern National, Dominion, Langley, Myrtle Beach. We see a lot of drivers that only have success, maybe at a home track or maybe 2 tracks tops. How have you guys been able to create such a good setup book at all of these different tracks and find that success?
Hannah, it's just working your butt off and just being willing to launch out, because anymore, if you're gonna vie for a national championship, it's hard to do it at just one track, and you've got to be able to compete at every place you can, every weekend you can. Every time there's a twin race and you hear about it, you need to be able to put your truck on the road and get going to it, and we did. I mean, we started this last year. I took the last time we won a national was in 2011, and I kind of took off for a while, and it's taken me a long time to get back to this point. And last year was our building year, and that was just going out everywhere and racing everywhere and trying to build a notebook and a setup for every track. And it's starting to pay off this year, where we're really starting to hone in on setups and really starting to learn the tires. It's just really tough. And so I think that's what you have to do now. You just have to be able to go on bank tracks, flat tracks. If you want to win a national, you got to be good everywhere.
You're looking for your 5th national title this season. You've led a majority of the year, of course. So I think 7 wins at Langley, a bunch of wins at South Boston. You're the championship point leader there. Hannah mentioned a couple of the other tracks a moment ago. You have all these modified guys, 2nd through 5th, lined up, and they're trying to catch you, but, man, they're having a tough time. How often and at what point of the year do you really start to analyze those points and maybe begin to change your strategy for the second half of the summer at trying to get that national championship?
We really start focusing on it before the season starts, so that you start mapping out your year, where you can find out where you can get 2 races instead of 1, where you can get twin races here and maybe another race on Saturday night, run a Friday and a Saturday and a Sunday. So it starts out before the year begins, and then after you map your schedule out, and then you start looking every weekend. You already know what you need to do, what the maximum points you can get for each race. You start, begging competitors to come with you, selling the racetrack that you're going to. You do everything you can to get everything that you need to get the points every weekend. And as you can see, I mean, we've worked really hard for this thing, and still it's close. And it's because guys are doing the same thing I'm doing. They're racing against as many cars as they can. They're starting at the rear of the field to get the bonus 3 points, and it makes it for a long, tough year. But I'm just honored to be able to be competitive in the thing, because it's gotten tougher than it was, say, in '06 when we first started winning nationals.
And we watched a similar situation last year between Lee Pulliam and Trevor Huddleston. Both that points championship came down to the wire as they were mapping out how to race on Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it was an intense battle. But speaking of which, if you get this 5th national championship, that'll add you to the record book, tying up Lee Pulliam as all-time NASCAR Wheel and All-American National Series points championships. How does that make you feel to be able to, you're in that record book with someone who you also see as like a friend and a competitor, Lee Pulliam?
Oh, it puts you in great company because that kid is tough beyond his years as well, and he's taken a year off here, and I know what that's like. I mean, it's tough. Sometimes you got to do what the books say you got to do, and you got to work some, and then you get to race some, and I think that's where he's at. He's just building his program up again. He's going to be back there again. Him and I both are racing against Larry Phillips, who has 5 national championships, and him and I both have 4. We're both trying to get to the 5th and maybe surpass, but it's so hard nowadays. I mean, you'd have to be arrogant to think that you could just start the year off and, think you got it sewed up. I mean, because there's tough guys like Keith Rocco and just so many other guys, the modifieds, late model asphalt guys. I'm racing against guys all the way to California, and all those guys work as hard and try as hard as I do.
In pretty good position now as we head into the final month of the point season for the NASCAR Wheel and All-American Series. Philip Moore is wrapping up with him here on NASCAR Coast to Coast. Philip, congratulations again on the win, the Hampton Heat 200 over the weekend, and best of luck to you in your run for yet another national championship here the next couple weeks.
Thanks, guys, for having me on, and I hope like heck I can be talking to you again here pretty soon in about 5 weeks.
That sounds like a plan. That's all that's left in the regular season for the NASCAR Wheel and All-American Series. And, of course, he's also looking for that Valley Star Credit Union 300 trophy here next month at the Martinsville Speedway, a race that will be heard here on the Motor Racing Network. Coming up, we go north of the border, and the NASCAR Pinty's Championship leader and most recent winner, LP Dumoulin, will join us after the break.
Whatever you drive, wherever you go, Hercules Tires will get you there, whether you're running on dirt or running a job. Our dependable, high-quality tires are the perfect fit for your needs. For unmatched value, selection, and warranty with industry-leading road hazard protection, there's only one choice, Hercules Tires. To learn more, visit HerculesTire.com or call 800-677-9535. Hercules Tires, right on our strength.
Live sports are the one true reality entertainment, where a single dramatic moment can become timeless. In NASCAR, Motor Racing Network's live broadcast elevates your senses to the sights, sounds, and struggles taking place on the racetrack.
Austin Dillon leads the pack. No one ever thought he would contend for the win. He's going to win the 60th running of the Daytona 500.
The power of radio to the imagination of the listener. Tune in to the Motor Racing Network. Visit MRN.com for an affiliate list in your local area.
This is NASCAR Coast to Coast, brought to you by Hercules Tires and by Grunt Style. Here are Kyle Rickey and Hannah Newhouse.
Back here on NASCAR Coast to Coast, the NASCAR Pinty Series provides excitement whenever they hit the racetrack up in Canada. And later this year, the first time here in the United States at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. They were on track this past weekend in the Bumper to Bumper 300 at Riverside International Raceway in Nova Scotia. And it was LP Dumoulin scoring the race win. He joins us now on the guest line. LP, welcome back to the show, and congratulations on the win at Riverside over the weekend.
Hey, thank you all. We had a great race.
Rain, though, affected much of the race weekend for you guys. Practice and qualifying, I don't think much of that really ever happened. How much did that affect you guys heading into Sunday's 300-lap event?
Well, I mean, the whole team was working really hard to make sure we adjust to the different time that we're going to be racing, because obviously we were supposed to race at night on a Saturday, and the track is different, especially after a big rained out like we had. The track was really green on the Sunday, and the whole team did adjust the car perfectly for me so that WeatherTech Benmar car could be competitive during the whole race and being there at the end very strong. So we, as you said, we really had to adjust and make the best out of it, and actually we got out of there with a win, so we're super happy about it.
And it was 300 scheduled laps around Riverside. And the name of the race, the Bumper to Bumper 300. And from what I understand, that race held pretty true to its name with a lot of rough, tough racing action. Talk me through some of the action that happened throughout that race.
Yeah, well, you got that right. I mean, it's been in the past years a race that we had a lot of action, and the same thing happened this year. I mean, from my point of view, though, it was pretty clean. We started from the front because of the rain, actually, so there was no qualification. We started with points. I was leading the championship, and we started from the front and had a pretty clean first part of the race. We had a really good strategy. My guys did a great job on making sure that we put the tires at the right time. So we've waited, and the car was still really fast on old tires. So as we were running, third, fourth, and fifth at one point, there was some bumper rubbing, but not too bad at that spot. But I've heard that behind there was a lot of action as well. So at the end of the race, we put the tires with 75 laps to go, and then we had a really, really good car, and I took off, and we created a gap big enough in between me and Cole Powell that we were capable of getting the win there.
Of course, Cole Powell, the driver that you are running for the championship with, he is second in the championship standings, a handful of points behind you. Let's talk about your season. Winless in 2015, winless in 2016, winless a year ago, and now already 3 wins here this season, just past the halfway mark. What has clicked this year? Or better question, what wasn't clicking for you the last 3 years in the NASCAR Pinty Series?
Yeah, it probably was a curse of the championship in 2014, but no, the truth there is we've been with WeatherTech for 7 seasons. Now, that's the 7th season we've been together. And in the past, before 2015, we always dealt with other teams that were prepping the cars for us, and I was showing up, with my suit helmet, and stuff, and just getting in the car, and then but we decided 2 years, well, that's the 3rd year now, we decided to start our own team. And then you know how it is when you start your own team with your own material. You really have to get the right equipment, get the right people to work on the cars. It's really hard to start a team from scratch when you fight against teams that's been there for 25 years plus, So I'm super proud of my guys, because the past 2 years we finished in the top 5 in the championship, and we've got a ton of top 5, ton of podiums during those 2 years, but yes, no wins. So that was missing. But I think over the winter, we had the time to now spend more on the performance side of it, instead of trying to build a team, and buy some equipment and get the right personnel and get the right people. So we've reached out to some really good guys like Mario Gosselin, and then McCall, and then a couple other guys that I've worked with in the past. So we did our own work on the performance side of it. We did some nice testing, and it's paying off right now big time with my team. And I'm super proud of those guys and girls. And I'm telling you, we're not done.
And with that other win that you added this past weekend at Riverside, do you feel like you can breathe a little bit easier knowing you've got that couple wins to help pad that points against Cole Powell? Or are you guys still, head down, digging as hard as you can to further that gap?
Well, as you said, I mean, it could be a situation right now that I would try to breathe and think that everything is more under control, but that's not the way I'm looking at it. I'm having so much fun right now going to the racetrack and knowing that we have equipment to win. That I'm, and as we said earlier, it's been so hard to build that team, so we have the equipment to win. I'm thirsty. I want more, and then I want every weekend I want to be up front and fight for the win. So, anyways, am I going to be taking big risks? Of course, no. But it's not time to give up and just sit down and look at the show, because it's super competitive in the NASCAR series, and we got great drivers, great teams that compete against us, and we got to be showing up every weekend with a car and a driver that can win the race. And then we will have to take the right decision at the right moment, so we of course finish the race. And that we still have 4 to go, and it's still a lot of traveling and preparation. So at this point, I don't really want to think too much about championship. I just want to go racing and have fun with my team and make sure we show up strong.
4 to go and a gap of 19 points between yourself and Cole Powell in second. The next stop on the NASCAR Pinty Series this weekend at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. I cannot wait to get there. I know Hannah will be there this weekend as well as part of the Motor Racing Network crew, as we'll broadcast the truck race, but we're also going to have our eyes on the NASCAR Pinty Series race prior to that. You have to be excited about getting back to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park this weekend after picking up the win there back in May to open up the season for you guys.
I love that track. It's actually one of the tracks I've learned to drive on when I was a kid. And it's my style. I mean, it's very fast. It's a track that you need a lot of momentum, and you need to carry a lot of speed in the corners. And we won there maybe three times now in NASCAR Canadian Series. So it's of course a track that I love. It's the home track for my sponsor, WeatherTech, up in Canada. It's we've just signed before Toronto weekend. We've signed another 3-year contract after this season. So. It's just a win-win deal in between WeatherTech and myself. So I want to give it back to those guys big time this season. If I could win that race, that'd be awesome. And again, I mean, I think it's going to be a great show, as you said. The fans are going to love it because we got the Truck Series at the same time as the Canadian NASCAR Series, the Pinty Series. So they will have a beautiful weekend with a lot of action, that's for sure.
Definitely looking forward to getting up there this weekend. I have never been to Canada, nor have I been to that racetrack, so I'm looking forward to seeing the Pinty Series race for the first time as well. But looking a little bit further ahead on the schedule, like Kyle mentioned earlier, the Pinty Series is coming on American soil for the first time, coming down to New Hampshire Motor Speedway in just a few weeks. How do you guys prepare for something like that when this is a track that the Pinty Series hasn't been to?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a way different type of track. It's going to be, first time for all of us. I mean, a couple of drivers been there in other series, and in late model stuff, but for us, it's going to be the first time going to Loudon, and we're super excited about it. We've met the organizer and the people that is in charge of the track there. They were at the Three Rivers Grand Prix last week with us, and just great guys, and I think everybody's really excited to meet at Loudon, New Hampshire Speedway, and then we have to prepare well. We have to do some homework. Again, as I told you before, I mean, we've been dealing with people that raced there a ton before, like Mario Gosselin, and then we talk a lot, and we have a plan on what we're going to do setup-wise and how we're going to do it. But of course, I think we're for sure going to have some curveball at one point because it's the first time we're there. But we're doing our homework and trying to get all the information as possible to make it perfect for our first time there.
Going to be a great race next month at the New Hampshire Motor Speedway, the first ever stop in America for the NASCAR Pinty Series. And, of course, you'll be there with the NASCAR K&N Pro Series East, the Wheel and Modified Tour. Going to be a great day of racing in the Granite State. But first we'll get to Canada this weekend and to the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, LP. Look forward to seeing you up there. And, again, congratulations on the win at Riverside this past weekend.
Hey, thank you all. And one more thing I can tell you, there's a lot of people from Canada that already go to Loudon. It's easy for us to go down there. It's a track that a lot of Canadians already go to see the American Series. So I can tell you there's a lot of people coming down to see that weekend. It should be awesome for everybody.
Been going to that racetrack since 1992, and they have played the Canadian National Anthem every race weekend there in New Hampshire, and it'll mean a little bit more in a couple of weeks. LP Dumoulin joining us here on the show, the NASCAR Pinty Series championship leader. Of course, they will be in conjunction with the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series this weekend at Bowmanville, Ontario. Both Hannah and I will be there to bring you all the action on Sunday, along with the rest of the Motor Racing Network team at 2 p.m. Eastern Time for the trucks. Coming up, we'll wrap up this edition of NASCAR Coast to Coast and talk about a driver that picked up his 9th track championship this past weekend.
Grunt style. The American fighting spirit is in everything we make. We are 500 patriots and veterans strong, bringing clothing manufacturing back to the United States of America. Always moving forward, never retreating, never giving up. We are Grunt Style, and this we'll defend. Get yours at gruntstyle.com.
MRN's Throwback Thursday, the greatest races in NASCAR history.
Richard Petty goes back in front. They both spin. They're in the wall. Petty is sliding. Pearson is still running. As they come to the stripe, the winner is car number 21.
They spin. They go into the outside wall. Earnhardt hits the wall. Rudd hits the wall. And scooting through is Jeff Bodine, and he is going to win the Holly Farms 400 here this afternoon.
Thursdays at 1 on MRN.com, on demand on iTunes and Google Play. Throwback Thursday on MRN.com. This is NASCAR Coast to Coast, brought to you by Hercules Tires and by Grunt Style. Here are Kyle Rickey and Hannah Newhouse.
For over 60 years, STP has been helping engines run better, longer. STP, inside every great machine. Of course, getting ready for STP Race Week here on the Motor Racing Network as we prepare for STP Race Week, leading into the Bojangles Southern 500 in just over a week's time at the Darlington Raceway in South Carolina. But first, wrapping up this edition of NASCAR Coast to Coast, and well, like every year, Bowman Gray Stadium wrapped up their season, becoming the first NASCAR track to conclude their season because, well, they have to give way to football there in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Congratulations to this year's champions, Kevin Neal in the Sportsman, Spencer Martin in the Street Stocks, Wesley Thompson in the Stadium Stocks, and Burt Myers picked up his 9th modified championship at the stadium. It was another night, Hannah, that saw action on and off the racetrack. Have you yet been able to take in a night at the Madhouse, being from North Carolina now?
I haven't gotten the chance to get the full experience. I went there twice last year, I think, and it rained out both times. And so I haven't gotten the chance to make it back up there. It's been a pretty full schedule for me, but I've seen the videos. I've gotten to at least experience the racetrack and see it. So next season, I'm going to take a weekend off and just make sure I go to Bowman Gray.
Funny story, I lived in Charlotte for 10 years. We went to Bowman Gray Stadium 5 or 6 times, and probably 4 of those times it rained, where all I really saw was warm-ups. I was bummed. So, yeah, a lot of that every Saturday evening, it seemed like. Also in the news, Hannah, this week, Phoenix International Raceway, or now Phoenix Raceway in Arizona, talk about the return of the Copper Classic and the NASCAR K&N Pro Series maybe returning to Phoenix. You've raced there as a driver in that series. How important is that racetrack to that schedule, and how big would it be if it were to return next January? I saw that announcement as well, and it actually, as funny as it sounds, it made me get really giddy and excited because Phoenix, to this day, is by far my favorite racetrack that I've ever ran on. We got to run alongside the Cup Series. It's just such a staple for West Coast racing because it's one of the few big racetracks we really have left that's recognized on a national division, and somewhere that us as the K&N Pro Series was able to go and race on that stage. And not only that, it was such a great time. It's a mile racetrack. It gives a lot of these younger drivers an experience like I was 16, I think, when I first ran Phoenix, and we had a great time. So for the K&N Pro Series to get to make a return back to Phoenix would be absolutely incredible, and you can guarantee I'll be out there for it. It's kind of the showcase racetrack in the West, much like Bristol and New Hampshire is out here for the East drivers. Both series come together this weekend, though, at Gateway Motorsports Park. Of course, Tyler Ankrum, the championship point leader over Tyler Dipple by 45 points in the East. A little closer in the West with Derek Thorne and Ryan Partridge, 18 points. That should be an interesting race this weekend as well, Hannah, because none of the drivers have much experience at Gateway Motorsports Park. Yeah, but we've proven before a lot of these young drivers that have gone to places like Iowa where many of them haven't seen, it doesn't seem to be affecting a lot of these young up-and-coming drivers, including Tyler Ankrum and Tyler Dipple. Neither of them had seen Iowa, and Tyler Ankrum found his way back into victory lane. So I think it's going to come down to, once again, the DGR boys and the Sunrise Ford boys on the East and West as they go to Gateway this weekend. That'd be fun as the East and the West come together for the final time here this season at Gateway Motorsports Park this weekend. Hannah, it was another quick show. We'll do it again next week. I will be here. I'll see you this weekend in Canada. Oh, that's right. North of the border. We got you can't get rid of me yet. And Camping World Truck Series action this weekend. Want to thank Philip Morris and LP Dumoulin for joining us on the show. For Craig Moore, Brian Yesowich, and Hannah, I'm Kyle Rickey.
NASCAR
See you
Coast
here
to
next
Coast
week.
has been brought to you by Hercules Tires and by Grunt Style. NASCAR Coast to Coast can be found on demand at MRN.com, iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, and SoundCloud. NASCAR Coast to Coast is a production of the Motor Racing Network. All rights reserved.